guys, welcome to the Actiri Magic channel. I'm Steve, the Actiri. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite Magic the Gathering EDH commanders, and that is Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. If you're not familiar, this guy came out of Modern Horizons 1. He is a 4-drop, 2 black, 2 generic, legendary creature, human cleric, protection from humans. And he has pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, put a -1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and draw a card. Pay 2 black, discard a card, and proliferate. What? So he's got a lot of cool abilities. Before we get into that though, please leave a comment below if you guys have any additions or better cards that you'd like to include in this list, but I would like to hear from you. Also, I want to mention that if you wait till the end of the video, I'll share with you a combo. So let's get into it. So what are the best cards with Yawgmoth? Well, I have an opinion. I'm sure you do too. Let's talk about it. The honorable mentions are Everflowing Chalice and Astral Cornucopia. Now, if you're not familiar with these need charge counters to be able to tap for mana. In Everflowing Chalice, if you pay 2 mana, you're going to get 1 charge counter on Everflowing Chalice. If you get 4 mana, you get 2 counters on Everflowing Chalice. And if you pay 6, you get 3 counters on Everflowing Chalice. Astral Cornucopia is 3 mana for 1 charge counter, 6 mana for 2 charge counters, etc., etc. As soon as we get 1 charge counter on either of them, this proliferate mechanic here on Yawgmoth will allow us to start increasing the charge counters on our mana rocks. These are super powerful. Lots and lots of times I have used proliferate with these 2 cards to make Everflowing Chalice or Astral Cornucopia tapping for like 10 or 15 mana sometimes, which is going to allow us to empty our hands. Now, it does come at the cost that we're going to have to discard a card for it, but we're okay with that. Next up, number 5 on our list is Zulu Cutthroat and Blood Artist. These cards are very similar, but they are very different as well. I want to point out the differences. So they're both 1 black, 1 generic, and they're both relatively weak with 1 toughness apiece. Whenever Zulu Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it says a creature you control, and it says each opponent. That's important. Now let's look at Blood Artist. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So a Blood Artist is very specific. It can only drain 1 opponent at a time, and it's any creature. Whereas Zulu Cutthroat says only your creatures, but it will drain every opponent. So it's a very important difference. Zulu Cutthroat is better for a combo, and we'll talk about the combo here in a bit. So number 4 on our list, Petitless Plunderer. Holy cow, if you've not been paying attention to this card, it's super cool. It is spiking to like $16 at this point, so it's not a cheap uncommon. It's a 4-drop, 1 black, 3 generic, 1/4. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So, very cool card, kind of expensive on the money, but every time we're sacking something to Yawgmoth, we're going to get mana to cast the card we're drawing. Super, super good. Next up, number 3 on our list is Archfiend of Ifnir. He's a 5-drop, 3 colorless, 5/4. Flying. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/1 counter on each creature your opponents control. Cycling 2. Now, it says whenever you cycle or discard a card. Yawgmoth has discard a card built into it to proliferate. So, what you can do is you discard something to Yawgmoth, get a -1/1 counter on all your opponent's creatures, and then you can proliferate those counters, and then you can start really wrecking the board for your opponent's side of the field. But it's one-sided. It's only your opponent's. So you're going to get a -1/1 counter whenever you discard with Yawgmoth and Archfiend of Ifnir, and then you're going to proliferate with Yawgmoth. So -1, another -1/1 counter. So good. And in the meantime, you're proliferating other counters that happen to be on the board. So if you happen to have a Planeswalker, you're going to be proliferating there too. Very cool card. This is a budget card, and it's on Mana Curve with Yawgmoth himself at 5 mana. It's a really, really cool card. I think it should be in there. Next up, number 2. Drum roll, please. Dictate of Erebos and Grave Pact. These cards are very, very similar. They're slightly different, But they're both really cool, especially with the fact that we're going to be sacrificing so many creatures with Yawgmoth. Let's read them. 5-drop. Dictate of Erebos. 2 black, 3 generic. Flash. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Sweet! Grave Pact. 3 black, 1 generic. Whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. So good. Both of these are really, really impactful. And Dictate of Erebos even has Flash, but it costs 1 more mana. Both of these are good. I would say run them both. One of them's like Dictate of Erebos, I think is like a $20 card, and Grave Pact is like a $35 card. Hey, Wizards, reprint these cards. We need them. Okay, and number 1, drum roll. Mikaeus the Unhallowed is a 6-drop. 5/5 Intimidate, legendary zombie cleric. This is whenever another human deals damage to you, destroy it. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. So if you're not familiar with Undying, Undying says when a creature with Undying dies, all of our non-humans, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. This is cool because this Undying mechanic enables us to put -1/1 counters on creatures to remove +1/+1 counters on creatures. So Yawgmoth is going to get rid of these +1/+1 counters that Undying have, but we've returned a creature to the battlefield that just died. So we're going to be able to sacrifice it infinitely with this Undying mechanic and Yawgmoth. Granted, pay attention to Yawgmoth. Yawgmoth says, let's talk about it. Let's talk about that combo. Yawgmoth says it's a 4-drop, 2 generic. It says pay 1 life, sack another creature, put a -1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. Be aware, what this means is that we're forced to draw a card. So if you only have 40 cards left in your library, you can only drain for 40. You can't drain for 41 because you'll deck yourself and you'll die. Just pointing that one out. But Butcher Ghoul has Undying built into the card, and Mikaeus gives all of our creatures this Undying effect, which is still really, really good. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to sacrifice Butcher Ghoul to get the -1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. So we're going to also get a creature with Nest of Scarabs. So Nest of Scarabs says whenever you put 1 or more -1/1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. So we're going to have a new creature to sacrifice to put a -1/1 counter onto our Butcher Ghoul. Now that's really cool because now we're getting another card, we're paying another life, and we're gonna get this Undying mechanic back. So every time we're cycling through this event, we're going to sacrifice a Nest Scarab, and we're Scarab Nest token, and we're also going to sacrifice Butcher Ghoul. So we're going to get 2 death triggers out of this, and we're going to repeat it over and over again. Because with Zulu Cutthroat, we're going to gain that 1 life back that we've been paying for Yawgmoth. And now we can drain our opponents for like 40 life. It says whenever you're getting 2 of these sacrifice mechanics, sacrifice these creatures, you're going to get 2 activations from Zulu Cutthroat because the token is seen by the graveyard before it disappears. So really, really fun combo. But I do want to mention that Nest of Scarabs isn't a creature. It's the one part of our combo that isn't a creature. And so I wanted to show that there's 2 replacements. There's probably more than 2. 2 replacements at least for this card that are creatures. So we can use something like Unburial Rites. Unburial Rites says go get 3 creatures from your library and put them in your graveyard. So if you need to go get pieces of your combo, so you're going to reanimate them somehow, you can. And Pawn of Ulamog is a good replacement, and Sifter of Skulls. And each one of these are creating 1/1 creatures for us to then sacrifice to Yawgmoth so that we can remove that +1/1 counter from our Butcher Ghoul. And we go melty facey face. Ah! I love this. Anyway, name that movie if you can. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you guys had a good time. This is Steve, the Actiri. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends. I hope this was of value to you. I really need the comments. The comments help guide me in the direction of new content. All right, guys. See ya.